Hello everyone, welcome back to another collection video. Today we're looking at one of my favorite films of all time, the great 1933 RKO Radio Pictures classic, King Kong, and the collection of Kong films and stuff since then. And here we have in the background the first copy of this movie that I ever owned, the CED, the Selectavision video disc version of the original movie. A movie that I saw with a VHS rental late at night when I was a kid and instantly fell in love. You know, the 30s is one of my favorite decades for movies in general, and this is one of the best, and still to me, this day, this is my favorite King Kong movie and one of my favorite movies ever. And it's astounding what they were able to accomplish, how much suspense and action and genuine emotion they were able to get out of the stop motion and storytelling. It's a simple tale that really digs into a lot of the primal storytelling elements that you see in stories throughout history in a way that still somehow, at the time and to this day, you know, watching it for the first time, when I first saw it, it was already the early 90s. It was in an exciting and interesting way, and they somehow took this ape character in this stop motion form and made him sympathetic and someone you actually cared about. It was a very sad ending. I remember crying the first time I watched it as a kid, and I couldn't believe that the movie at this time I had not seen very many movies of this age, and was shocked by how much I loved it. You know, it was one of the first black and white movies I ever saw, and I was just enthralled with the storytelling, and ever since I've loved it, to the point where I eventually wanted to grab a novelization of the story, because it's just one of my favorite stories, one of my favorite movies, and one that I will come back to constantly. So more with the original Kong, because it's absolutely my favorite. This older 2-disc Warner Brothers DVD release. And my favorite thing about this was, up until this release, you know, I'd liked the movie and I had seen it a bunch of times, but I had never dug into any of the real behind the scenes or history of the film. This, whatever year this edition came out, this was the first time I'd ever encountered all the crazy amount of special features, including this 7-part documentary that is just one of the greatest behind-the-scenes things I've ever seen. I love digging into it, and there's so much on this 2-disc set. And they released a corresponding beautiful, this is one of my favorite things in the collection, this tin case. They've done a bunch of these over the years. I love this King Kong one, and as you can see, the texture to it is fantastic. I love this back artwork. It's one of my favorite kind of poster designs for that too. So this is one of my favorite pieces just because of all the historical stuff it includes. It includes that same 2-disc edition, but this in a different case, like a slipcover, and then pull all these extras aside. I love that case. We have free movie poster and other advertisement stuff, but the real cool stuff here, one, back when movies were classy, and I love the look of stuff. You have a picture that staggers the imagination. This is a reproduction of the program from the premiere Friday evening, March 24th, 1933, in Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, and that's just such a cool thing to be able to see. I was very excited to dig into this. I would love if more classic movies from this time period were able to do something like this. They have a bunch of like lobby cards, and that's a very typical thing, but this kind of stuff, this program, is fantastic. I really like this. As a big fan of this original film. love just kind of fun historical extras. Make the experience of the film come to life in a different way. Because when you watch a film from a different time period, whether it's the 80s or the 30s or whenever, it's kind of fun in your mind to just sort of pretend you're back when it originally came out. Just kind of put yourself in that mindset, and you enjoy it even more, and just kind of feeling like you're a part of that. And then we have a bunch of the different poster designs. And the last thing for the original King Kong, this is a Blu-ray set from Germany. There's been a couple different releases of King Kong on Blu-ray. There's one from Japan that's like really poor quality, strangely. And then there's an older Warner one that's gone out of print, similar to this 2-disc DVD set, and then a Warner Archive Blu-ray. And just looking up all the different versions, they hadn't had a Blu-ray copy. This seemed to be the one they wanted to go with. It has German and English support for the original King Kong, and Son of King Kong, and Mighty Joe Young, all on Blu-ray, a bunch of special features, and again, the English and German support, and it's region A, B, C, so virtually region-free, as the bulk of people, so it's a beautiful German set, the slipcover, and you have a booklet for the trilogy of movies, and a look at all kinds of different behind-the-scenes stuff, and history of different Kong movies, and then the actual release. And it's all in a 2-disc set. I really like this, and this is the copy then that I have for Son of Kong, which feels like what it is. It's one of those kind of rushed productions. It doesn't live up to the original, but at the same time, when you really think about it and you look at the behind the scenes, it is shocking what they were able to accomplish with Son of Kong. Like, that they were able to get that out so fast and actually be as good as it is. Crazy. But for me, the better film is the related, it's not Kong, but the related Mighty Joe Young. We have a DVD here. The original Mighty Joe Young, not the Disney remake. I saw that in the, I guess that was what, mid-90s, trying to remember? And that was okay, but I never really, I saw that in theaters once, and then once randomly at like a neighborhood watch party or something like that, and yeah, would never really watch that again. It was okay. But the original Mighty Joe Young is fantastic. Always liked that, and I always thought it was one of the better Kong-related stories. So I really enjoyed that, and a bunch of special features and commentaries with Mighty Joe Young. Then we dig into the 70s with the Dino De Laurentiis King Kong. I think this just got a 4K set, I think. There's a bunch of different releases of this one, and different versions. There's extended cuts of that, and the TV cut, and a bunch of different versions of this one. This one's just the theatrical with Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange. I always really liked this one. I thought it was fun, but it's never been one of my favorites. I like having this different interpretation of the original story. And it's always been a movie that I enjoyed, but it's never been my absolute favorite. I think because it's such a reimagining of just the original Kong that I can't help but compare it to the original Kong, and it just doesn't hold up to the same level for me as much as I enjoy it. The other thing that I always thought was odd, even when I first saw this on VHS, in some point probably in the 90s, I really anticipated when I first watched it that with the newer technology that they would actually improve Kong, both the intimidation factor as well as the emotional connection. And while they did a little more, I think, to try and add some personality and to humanize him in a way, and I think there was a greater focus on the emotional Beauty and Beast connection, at the same time, there was, for some reason, as always has been with me, less of a suspension of disbelief with that Kong. For some reason, watching it more, I was always more aware. I try to, when I get into a movie, really immerse myself to the point where it feels real. Like, you leave the suspension, suspension of disbelief. You really leave that behind and dig into it, and to really feel the full emotional impact just for those 2 hours or whatever. Just believe the world that you're seeing, and believe the storytelling. And part of that is, how believable is that storytelling? How much can it really draw you in? And for some reason, I was always much more aware that I was watching a movie versus the original King Kong. For some reason, just emotionally, I found that more technologically simplistic stop-motion Kong. For some reason, the presentation, the masterful design of that film, I always felt more emotional and more of a connection. It felt more alive, that Kong, which is odd. I always thought that was interesting. And then the ones a little more in between is Peter Jackson's King Kong. I have this deluxe extended edition DVD set. Which my favorite part of this set is the other 2 discs, a 3-disc set over 6 hours of special features, and that's the thing I really dig into with this particular set. That's why I enjoy that. My favorite watch copy, though, is the HD DVD. This was really the poster child for HD DVD, the format, in the war against Blu-ray. So I really like this copy for the presentation. And that was the first King Kong movie that I ever saw in movie theaters, was this Peter Jackson's King Kong. And I'm somewhere in the middle on it. I don't like it as much as the original, but I like it more than the Dino De Laurentiis. And I think what I really like about it, which is what I found a lot of people disliked about it when the group of people I watched it with in the movie theaters, everyone thought it was too long, it was too drawn out. It was good, it was an impressive movie, but they thought it should have been cut down. And for me, I love the expansiveness of the storytelling, because it genuinely felt like a love letter to the original film. And that's part of why it's not my favorite. As much as I really enjoy it, it felt like it's a good movie in its own right, but it's trying so hard to express an admiration for the original that it makes you like the original more than it. Like, it's an interesting scenario with this, but that's part of why I love the behind the scenes, because it's fascinating behind the scenes. It's kind of a continuation of the brilliant behind the scenes features in The Lord of the Rings, the other Peter Jackson classics, that it's great to dig into those, and that's one of my favorite parts, and seeing how much he truly loves that original King Kong, and how much he's trying to show that and restore things that were left out of the original into this. And he really was trying to make his ultimate edition of the original story, his love letter to that original, his version, his vision that had been growing since seeing the original since childhood, and I could really feel that. But it's one of those movies that I feel like if you don't have a great love the original King Kong, you might think it's too long, and might, especially as a deluxe extended edition, it might be and feel like an overblown movie, and that was the negative side that I always heard with that. But so I really like this Peter Jackson's King Kong. I think it's a great movie. And then the last part of the Kong collection, we have Kong Skull Island. As far as these, it would probably be my least favorite, but it was still fun, and it was interesting seeing a completely different and more action-focused take. I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun movie, and it was a great way of introducing Kong into this new era of these big monster movies, with the newer Godzilla movies and Kong. And I've watched a bunch of the other various Kong things over the years, short-lived animated series, all the different, Japanese ones, the Kong, versus Godzilla, and there's a newer one. The newer one's the one I haven't seen. And they're getting into the new, Kong versus Godzilla, and all that stuff to me is very fun, superfluous stuff. Like, it's all things that I've seen it. I liked my time with it, but none of that was all things I would ever kind of rewatch. I don't think so. For now, this is all the Kong that I like enough to want to keep into the collection, and it's really just a love for that original film, and I like the original, Mighty Joe Young, and like the different interpretations that really show an admiration for that original film over the years. I'd love to hear what you like about the King Kong movies. What are some of your favorites? What was your history with any of these? Was the first one the one that you saw? And if you have your own Kong collection, what does your King Kong collection look like? There's so much. I mean, it's been a massively the original popular movie for getting close to a century, so there's a lot of Kong stuff out there. And if you've been a lifetime Kong collector, I know there's some people that have been collecting really awesome Kong stuff since long before even my parents were born. So I'd love to see an epic Kong collection. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you in another collection video. I've done tons of these over the years for so many different franchises, and still plenty more to come.